What is good, everyone? OJ here. Welcome back to another video. Today we're talking about the Nintendo Switch OLED, the Switch system itself, and how it's going to propel Nintendo to do something pretty incredible, something they haven't done in pretty much a decade at this point when it comes to system sales. Plus, we're going to take a little look at my most anticipated or highly forecasted games for the rest of the year, so it should be pretty good. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and let's go ahead and jump right into this. And we're starting off with the Nintendo Switch OLED. We've got some new information out of Japan. After the initial debut sales, the Nintendo Switch OLED pretty much was sold out across the stores. 140,000 units sold in Japan, and there was even more people that wanted them. Nintendo was having lotteries around with many different retailers out there in order for people to get the Nintendo Switch OLED. That dropped with Metroid Dread, which that game, Metroid Dread, actually broke a franchise record in Japan for debut sales, not including digital. If you did include digital, it does look like Metroid Dread did over 100,000 units in about 3 days in Japan. So very impressive there. So things are looking pretty much up. Now, according to Nintendo analyst Mr. David Gibson on Twitter, he did officially state that demand for the Nintendo Switch OLED is around 16 times higher than what they can even provide. So in my opinion, that says a number of different things, which we will get into. What we're seeing here in the US when it comes to Amazon or Target or Walmart, anytime a Nintendo Switch OLED comes up in stores, they're gone pretty much instantly. There was a little bit of layover, or whatever you want to call it. There was a little bit of overlap, but pretty much by the end of the day, all of those OLED switches are gone whenever they do come up. So it shows that there is a pretty big demand for the new Nintendo Switch product. So let's talk about this, because Nintendo is in a pretty critical juncture of the Nintendo Switch. They're on the second half before they get into their next generation system. And one of the big things that people always talk about, and I'm pretty sure Nintendo wants to hit these marks as well, is becoming the best selling home system of all time. And if they can, even maybe reach up to what the Nintendo DS did, which is their best selling system of all time. Now, there's a couple different things that they would need for that to happen in order for it to kind of go through smoothly. And it looks like the Nintendo Switch OLED is going to be part of that spark, along with The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2, along with Mario Party, along with all the different games that are coming out this year and also next year. Pokemon Legends Arceus, games like that are all going to help a lot when it comes to reaching those goals. Now, we do know, based off of what Nintendo reported before and off of the corresponding sales since then, the Nintendo Switch is definitely over 90+ million units at this point. And it's looking, with the Nintendo Switch OLED and the work that that's putting in various different regions, that 100 million units is definitely achievable before the end of this year. And I think that that's what Nintendo is looking for. They're looking for that 100 million mark. It is a landstone mark, and it's a mark that only one other Nintendo home console has done, and that's the Nintendo Wii. So it looks like Nintendo is primed and positioned to pass up the Wii either this year or next year. And if they pass them up this year, they would have a very strong second half or last half of the year with games like Shin Megami Tensei 5, also Mario Party Superstars, Metroid Dread. All of these games would be contributing factors to that. But I also think the biggest thing, of course, is the revision with the Nintendo Switch OLED, and people just wanting to be able to play with that nice display, especially based off of all the reviews. Many people thought the reviews were going to be like, okay, you don't need this, it's not very good, it's just an average upgrade. But that OLED tech is really turning people's minds, and really the reviews of the system itself is pretty good based off of how people kind of felt about the hardware with the Nintendo Switch, which, once again, it's still a system that's not extremely powerful like the PlayStation 5 or the Xbox Series, but for what it does, it offers something that's very different that you can't do with those other systems, which is convenient, connected gameplay between portable and also home console, seamless at this point, and also with the best display tech that gamers are into right now, which would be OLED tech. The OLED TVs are taking over, so it makes sense there. So I think that Nintendo has a lot of positive momentum and things going for them with that Nintendo Switch OLED and with the games that are coming out. I think there's going to be a lot of surprises in terms of how the OLED does this holiday season, especially because the internet wasn't completely sold on the Nintendo Switch when it was first revealed, to the point to where people were pretty angry, like always, when it comes to various different things with certain products that are put out. So it is interesting to see that. But I do feel that when you look at some of the games that are coming out, that's the big thing that's also going to help as well. There's some games that I'm looking forward to quite a bit, and I think that people are kind of underestimating in terms of helping move the Nintendo Switch, because it's not the typical big Mario adventure or Super Smash Brothers. Games like Mario Party Superstars on the Nintendo Switch, remember guys, Super Mario Party, that sold over 14 million units on the Nintendo Switch system. I think even a bit more there. So it's pretty incredible how well that game did, blowing out pretty much every other Mario Party game ever for Nintendo. And next up, you have stuff like Shin Megami Tensei 5. So not only are you hitting the casual Nintendo market and everything, you're also getting maybe potential the Persona fan base, and of course the built-in SMT fan base that has been waiting for a game like this for quite some time. Stuff like Advance Wars for the classic fans out there looking for something that's old school, along with games like Metroid Dread. That game already came out and it's selling, it's doing its thing, but at the same time, like, to see that for the holiday season, that's also going to be a game that people do pick up some more. So all of these factors kind of combining in together are going to be the reason why Nintendo Switch does hit that major mark of 100 million plus for this year. And it would be awesome because the Wii is at about 101 million or so. It would be really cool if Nintendo could actually pass that up before the end of the year, so they have that, so they can say that on their investors meeting report, like, hey, we passed up our best selling home console of all time. The next up, of course, would be the Nintendo DS, the Game Boy, or Game Boy first, then Nintendo DS after that. So I think that that's going to be a very interesting thing, and something that the games that are coming out are going to help with that. Now, me personally, I'm really excited for some of the stuff that's going to be happening with the games, especially at the end of this year and early next year. I think it's really going to help bring that boost and bring the momentum that Nintendo definitely needs to achieve a lot of their goals that they're looking to do. So, for example, we talked about Pokemon Legends Arceus. I think that's a huge game at the beginning of next year to have dropped at the end of the month in order to push things through. We don't know exactly where Kirby is going to be, but Kirby, that is a spring 2022 title. That's going to be a big game that's going to help as well. You have Triangle Strategy. That's going to be another big game that's going to help as well. So there's a number of titles that are kind of sprinkled throughout the end of this year, coming up pretty soon here, along with some of the other games that's going to be huge boost to Nintendo Switch in terms of getting to where Nintendo wants it to be and hitting some all-time marks. Now, another game that I haven't mentioned, but I'd be crazy to not mention it, is Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. People are kind of underestimating that game a little bit because of some of the reception online, and because it is a remake of Diamond and Pearl. It's not a new generation. But if Pokemon Let's Go has taught us anything, is that the appetite for Pokemon is higher than ever, even when it's not the normal mainline Pokemon games. So I do feel that these games, which are remakes of some of the most beloved games of all time in the Pokemon universe, and actually my favorite Pokemon games with Gen 4, I think that this is going to be way bigger than people think that it's going to be, and that is going to be a big help, especially with that Pokemon Switch Lite. So I think that Nintendo Switch Lite sales along with it could boost. We could see a big boost in Nintendo Switch Lite because of Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, and of course a natural boost with those games with the Nintendo Switch OLED as well. I think it's actually a combination of different things there. So if you're looking at it, things are looking pretty good, and it should be a mark that Nintendo could hit by the end of the year based off of the different games that I mentioned, and of course all of the different indie games and some of the major third-party games that are coming out as well in between this time period. Now, Nintendo did wrap up a very successful launch of the Nintendo Switch OLED and Metroid Dread, so it has that going for it. But some of the keys to actually driving towards the Game Boy and the Nintendo DS for next year is going to be some of the other stuff, some of the other big games that they do have lined up. I think the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild sequel, that is going to be the key game out of all of this in order for Nintendo to actually pass that mark up of the Nintendo DS. That game needs to be some type of other, crazy type of great game in order for it to do it. If it does drop next year like it's planned to do, I think that that game could be the catalyst for Nintendo selling a lot more Switches than they would have thought that they could sell, because Breath of the Wild, that is so highly anticipated at this point. So many people are looking forward to it, getting hyped for it, getting ready, and it's the sequel to the best selling Legend of Zelda game of all time by a very large margin. Zelda has never been more popular. Zelda has never helped more systems. Zelda has never done more work for Nintendo than it's doing right now at this point for the Nintendo Switch. One of the main reasons why the Nintendo Switch is so successful is because of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. That game from the very beginning put a positive spin on the system, put a positive light on the system that you can pick up that type of game and play, and continues to this point to be one of the major reasons why people pick up a Nintendo Switch. They buy The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and they buy a Nintendo Switch. Those are like hand in hand, peanut butter and jelly, whatever the case is. Zelda is one of the reasons. So this could be another wave of that. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 is going to be huge for Nintendo in terms of if it can pass up their best-selling system of all time, which would be the Nintendo DS. It's going to be huge for that. So hopefully they actually do get that out next year like they are planning to do so. But once again, there are other big games as well that are going to help out in terms of boosting the profile of the Nintendo Switch and getting to their marks that they want to get to. And it's going to be interesting to cover this because I've been covering it pretty much since day one. I've covered the Wii U dark days and even a bit of the heyday with the Wii as well. So I've seen pretty much all sides of Nintendo in terms of when they're doing extremely well with the consoles, when they're not doing so well, when they have a bad launch, then recover, like the Nintendo 3DS. So I'm just looking at it from an analytical standpoint, and it's been fascinating to cover so far. And I wanted to give you guys a little bit of insight in terms of what I'm thinking and how Nintendo's going to execute their plans for their game lineup and what they're doing. Now, as a small side note, I do think that some of the stuff with the Nintendo Switch Online and the expansion pack, that could be something right now doesn't have a lot of positive buzz or momentum with it because of how people feel about the price. But if Nintendo actually shapes up a bit more and just kind of gets in shape with that service, with actually giving people a roadmap or telling people, hey, you're getting games every single, I would say, like month or something like that, and there's good games that people actually want from the Sega and also the N64 library, that could be a boost as well in order to have a convenient way to play games online with your friends right there on your Switch alongside all of your other games too. So I do think that that still could be something as long as Nintendo actually does more with it and is not as lazy as they were in terms of adding games like with the Super Nintendo and the NES games. If they get stuff like they did at a faster clip and they announce things better there, I think that could be a help as well. Not the main factor. It's obviously going to be the normal games, not old N64 or Sega Genesis games that really help move stuff, but I think that it could help out and be a factor alongside many of the other things that I already mentioned. So what are your thoughts on this when it comes to Nintendo Switch and some of the momentum and potential areas they can hit, some major milestones? And of course, what games are you looking forward to the most to playing on your new Nintendo Switch OLED or just the regular Nintendo Switch itself? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and we will see you for the next video. Peace.